Hey guys, welcome back to the Football Diary podcast, and we're talking about Chelsea today. Their weird loan system, I think, is something that needs to be looked at, because I read something recently. They've got 37 loan players coming back this season from the year they've just had. That's crazy, isn't it? Is this something they can carry on doing? I mean, they've done it since Roman Abramovich has been in charge of the club, basically, haven't they? But to name a few players coming back, we've got Zappacosta, Danny Drinkwater, Tiemoue Bakayoko, some names there that I forgot even were Chelsea players. So we'll start, Myles, with you first of all. Chelsea's loan system has had a mixed success rate. You can look at players that have got away, like Kevin De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku. They were both through this same loan system. It seems like they try and attract as much talent as possible with the hope of keeping some happy by putting them on loan, but not all players, if they're good enough, are happy with it. Can they carry on doing this with the way the world is at the moment in football?
I think the thing with Chelsea is they seem to be planning as if they have a long-term goal in place with these loan players, but then also spending in the transfer market to suggest that they need immediate fixes. So it doesn't really allow for those loan players to grow. We saw a bit of a change in that when Lampard came in, because obviously some of the players that they were loaning out were the likes of Mason Mount, Reece James, Tammy Abraham, and they came back and played. But in terms of the foreign exports that they tend to bring in and then loan out, I can't really think of too many success stories. Christensen might be one, I guess. Yeah. Maybe Kurt Zouma's had a couple of loan spells, but nothing that's really been that successful for him. So it is an odd model. I do think a lot of it is just we'll get them so no one else can sometimes. And it's safer for Chelsea with the amount of money they have to bring in a cheap youngster and see what happens with him, then allow him to go to the likes of Spurs or Liverpool and let them then compete. You look at the list of players coming back this summer, and I don't think there's anyone that's going to threaten that first team, really, is there?
No, I was going to say, with a new coach in charge, it seems like every couple of seasons there's a new manager, isn't there? So there's Ross Barkley, obviously, coming back from his loan at Villa, David Zappacosta, Danny Drinkwater, Lucas Piazon, who seems to have been on loan forever.
He's gone now, hasn't he?
Has he gone? I hope so, because he's been in this summer. Yeah. Ethan Ampadu's coming back, and he's a Wales international. Kenedy, is he still there? Michy Batshuayi, Bakayoko, and Ruben Loftus-Cheek as well, who was a recent England international and a bit of a Gareth Southgate favourite. So any of those names, Dave, do you think are going to get in the first team for Chelsea? And what do you think of their model as well?
No, I think obviously some of them have been bought with the purpose of being good enough to make the step up to the first team, or integrate straight into the first team, like Bakayoko. But it just seems as though they're on that high salary that can't actually get rid of them. They're looking to kind of balance the books by loaning them out. So they've been obviously stuck in a situation with a few of them, but I suppose it's kind of how, I know it's a different situation, but how United have been with Lingard this season. He's on quite a decent salary, and he wasn't going to get many games. I suppose they thought, by handing him out on loan, that they'd be able to kind of balance the wage expenditure a little bit better.
So maybe there's an element of them just having a bad record in the transfer market, if that's the case then. Because so many of the players there were bought for decent fees, Bakayoko being one of them after, one good season with Monaco. I mean, he's been on loan at Milan and is it Napoli last season as well under Gattuso.
I mean, they have had success with their loan in, not a great deal, but in terms of, obviously, Mason Mount went out on loan to Reece James was on loan at Wigan for a season. He did well there.
The difference is they're the academy players rather than signings that they've then had to loan out.
Yeah.
So Mason Mount has been at Chelsea for absolutely donkey's years, hasn't he? So I think if you look at that list of players and are any of them good enough to break into the Chelsea team one day, you would argue that the ones that Chelsea will want to keep hold of are probably Loftus-Cheek and Ethan Ampadu, because they're the young ones that you think could actually develop. Now, Bakayoko, by all accounts, is actually quite a good player. He didn't really hit the ground running at Chelsea, but it was fairly well liked out in Milan, but they couldn't afford to keep him at the time. I don't think he's had a bad time at Napoli, really. He's not hurt his reputation. I can't see him fitting into the Chelsea team when they've got N'Golo Kante and Jorginho in the midfield. So it's poor circumstances for someone like that. But I don't think it's all bad record. Some of it is. Like, they've only just got rid of Victor Moses. He's only just gone this summer. He was another one that was loaned out constantly. Zappacosta won't play for Chelsea again, you'd imagine. Yeah. He'll be back in Italy very soon. There's a few of them that you look at and you think, that's nuts. But it's not necessarily that they're bad players. It's just wrong club for them, and they just can't afford to get rid of them. Batshuayi, perfect example. Yeah. He's never going to play for Chelsea. He's not good enough for Chelsea. But he looked good when they signed him. You can understand why they made that move. But now what do they do with him? That's the problem.
Yeah, they've got players that are kind of a mishmash of different management styles as well. I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
Zappacosta was a Conte signing, wasn't he? Quite clearly. And every single player that's had his contract running down, which they all probably will in the end and end up leaving on a free, is a different management style bought for the purpose to suit that manager's system. So I think it's just the way Chelsea are run at the minute. And like it or not, they're the European champions. So something's working. They're throwing enough money at enough players that a few of them are actually coming good. And they have some incredible signings. I mean, last season they had a wave of them that only really came good once they had a system in place and Tuchel actually took control of the club. But as you can see from the list we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of players that weren't really Chelsea standard to begin with and probably are just unlucky by the cycle of the way things roll with Chelsea, aren't they, really? So, yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, if they are going to leave this season, they're on such big contracts that it's going to take a decent sized club to sign them. But then are they good enough for that level of team to buy them, really?
That's the problem. There's certain players in that list that you do worry about, really. Barkley is a perfect example.
Yeah.
He moved to Villa last season. He started quite well, then picked up an injury like he does. And then when Grealish was out, he failed to fill that gap. So you think, okay, well, what's Barkley's level now? I'm not sure what it is, but it's below his pay scale. I can tell you that much for sure. It's why Drinkwater's still there. I thought Drinkwater had gone, to be honest. I'm really surprised to hear that he's gone back. But there are a few of them that you just think their career's just gone. They're just in that endless cycle. Where does Barkley go this summer? Because he's not going to stay at Chelsea, is he?
Well, that's the thing. It feels like the system they've got, it works occasionally, and some of the signings come good. But first of all, if the player's got the patience to do that, have 2 years on loan, if they're 23, 22 years old, they seem to buy them at quite a young age, don't they? Before you know it, 7 or 8 seasons of being on loan has happened, and they're touching 30 and haven't got a club to go to. It feels like it's just a huge neglect on the part of the players. They're a product of a machine that just keeps signing people for hopefully finding some talent. That seems like a pretty cruel way of working, doesn't it?
And enough players have moved away and found success elsewhere that it would start to be a deterrent. If you think about, we already talked about De Bruyne, Lukaku, Salah is in that list as well. But then even more similar to that, Nathan Ake, how long was he at Chelsea for? Never broke through. All right, he's not playing regular football at Man City now, but look where he is. He had a good spell at Bournemouth, was noticed, and moved on with his career. There's going to be plenty of players that will see that model and think, all right, I might be Christensen if I hang around and get some game time, or I could be De Bruyne if I go somewhere else, grind for a year or two like De Bruyne did over in Germany, and then I'll make my step up. Because it ain't happening for me here. I do worry that with Chelsea, that they're farming these players and wasting some talent. That's why it really makes me sad. Because that's Spelly at Dortmund on loan. He looked brilliant. And he just looks a shell of the player he was now.
Yeah, well, even Danny Drinkwater, you think, what might have been if it had stayed at Leicester? Because he was playing above his level there. And the team was built to accommodate a player of his style. Throw him in at Chelsea with the price tag that he had. And I think that's just a level too much for him, isn't it? So another shame. And I think that model is just a real sad way of a player to sort of waste a career, isn't it? Dave, I'll ask you the question about this Chelsea model. Is this something that they can continue doing? Once this cycle of players runs down a contract or moves on for whatever reason, can they keep signing sort of mid to high level European youngsters with promise and keep loaning them out to Vitesse Arnhem, for example, and hope that some come good? Is this something they can carry on with?
Well, it will peter down potentially just because of the Brexit rulings on buying.
Of course, yeah.
And teams are now looking to South America because obviously rules are different over there. I don't think it will change. Like it's been going on for years, and it's almost become a bit of a joke now. A lot of people make jokes about these players, and we forget that they've even got these players still on loan. So it's a way that's going to potentially make money for them if they make profit off some of these players. They're not losing money at the end of the day.
It's strange because I think most of the players could make a pretty decent mid-table Premier League team, couldn't they? They're that kind of level. So,
if these teams are paying a fee for the actual loan as well as paying their wages every week as well, again, do you know what I mean? That it's not always just the salary that they're paying.
No. It seems to benefit Chelsea in that they have potential on their hands who could come good, and it benefits whichever team they loan them to, which has been Vitesse Arnhem in Holland for quite a while. Mason Mount was there, wasn't he, quite recently before he went to Derby. Did really well. So, I mean, this kind of setup does work for the right kind of player and for the right kind of team that they're loaning them to. But so many of these players have got such a long career history now of loan after loan after loan. And we mentioned Lucas Piazon. He's a career loanee, isn't he, basically?
He was their longest serving player in their squad for a while, and he'd only made like 3 appearances or something ridiculous.
It is baffling, isn't it? So whether they can continue this model financially, who knows? But I just think from a player perspective, it's a career ender, I think, if you're going to go to a club like Chelsea with no promises. And let's face it, are you ever going to get any promises at a club like Chelsea? Is a manager ever going to get promises at a club like Chelsea? Probably not.
What do we think will happen to the younger British ones, or not even necessarily the younger ones, but they're the ones that obviously we know the best. So Loftus-Cheek, where's his future now? Barkley, definitely question. Ampadu, Ampadu was one of the hottest prospects in Europe for a while when he went over to Germany. Yeah. Now he's been relegated with Sheffield United. Is he going to break into the Chelsea team? Where do those players go? That's what I would be interested to see. What happens to someone like Loftus-Cheek now?
With promise and with international caps, most of these players are internationals as well, don't forget. So I think with the British players, again, they will make really good signings for a mid-table Premier League team. Ethan Ampadu in the Crystal Palace team would be fantastic. Do you know what I mean? They're looking for players of a certain age at the minute because they've let go so many that were old, So with the right team, with the right fee, they should just let them go. I don't think they should hold out for a fee of 15 million plus for Ethan Ampadu, accept 8 million for him and let him go. I think that's the right thing to do. I don't think they will do it. It doesn't work for them, does it? But we'll see. But that's the crazy Chelsea model anyway. If you like our content, please just hit that subscribe button. It'd be great to get more following for us. We're fairly new. Even give us a like. That'd be nice. We've got all the links in the description to this video for our socials and also to our Discord channel as well. But for now, guys, it's been a pleasure. We're talking about Chelsea in so much detail. But we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you. See ya.